had a busy winter, didn't you?
Yeah, really working on that Fairbanks motor there.
Yes.
That was quite a nice winter too.
Yeah. What size is that one?
It's a 10 horsepower Fairbanks Morse built in Canada.
Yes. And from that C serial number, we were able to tell that it was built in 1924.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for this area, like Kapuskasing along Highway 11 here, is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year.
Yeah.
And the story really goes to the settlements that were like east and west of Kapuskasing, right?
That's true.
There was no highway.
No highway, no.
Just a railroad.
Railroad in 1911.
Yeah. So when they came here, there was nothing.
Nothing at all.
Yeah. And that would be your grandparents, my grandparents.
Yeah.
And they had a really rough go when they first got here.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And like the winters here are very harsh.
Yeah, and the mosquitoes in the spring.
The mosquitoes right about this time of the year. Yeah. And the growing season is short, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Would you say that this is more possibly that it was used agricultural or it was more in the lumber side of things?
Yeah, I think there was more in the forest for firewood, for lumber, I don't know, but I think so.
Yeah. Let's have a little bit of a walk around. So you started from the ground up and you built a brand new cart.
Yeah. That's maple, 6x6 maple for the axle there.
Yes.
And spruce for the frame.
Nice. And the tongue, you turned that?
Yeah. That's...
Okay. And a lot of people would look at this and say, you know, a barn find, it's always better if you keep the patina, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't find this thing in a barn.
No. I find it in a muscade, about half buried on one side.
Mostly this side, right?
Yeah. With the pulley there broken, and
a lot of work.
Quite a lot of work.
Yeah. So how long do you think it was buried?
Oh, I don't know. Could been for 50 years, maybe more.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
And so this is not really a restoration. It's like it's been reclaimed, right? It's salvage. We rescued that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And you had some help, a little bit.
I had lots of help.
Yes.
Friends and people I know. It's always good to have some other people ideas.
Yeah, and even though this thing was probably buried for 50 or 60 years, that still leaves about 40 years of use, right?
Yeah, that's true.
There was wear and tear, right?
Yeah, there was wear on the piston. We had to change rings and sleeve for the piston.
It was rebored, right? You put a sleeve and rebored the cylinder.
Yeah, that's true.
There's good compression in it now.
Yeah.
Big time.
That was quite a big job.
Yes, but the compression here, like this cylinder closes really tight with the valves and the piston. There's a lot of compression on this engine.
Oh, it's better than you, for sure.
Yeah. I know, Denis, that you and your brother Roger have a tradition of showcasing our heritage with different implements, right? This is not your first item.
No, we are involved in Kapuskasing Heritage Festival also for 10 years, 12 years.
Yes.
And
you have another one of these smaller stationary engines?
Yeah, this one is a Fairbanks. The other one is a Desjardins, 5 horsepower. It's smaller than this one, but it's about the same.
Same idea.
Yeah.
And other than that, you also have a sawmill that you run, a big portable sawmill?
Yeah, a sawmill, a planer mill, and an edger.
Yes. All in demonstration when these festivals come up.
Yeah, that's true. That's starting with the tree and doing lumbers for the construction.
Yeah. And it's you and Roger and a group of friends, right?
Yeah, quite a big group of friends also. There's no way you could operate a sawmill, planer mill alone. You need people around.
Very nice. And where I came into the project, Denis, was helping you with this American Bosch AB33 Magneto, right?
Yeah.
Which you had to take apart, right?
Yeah, that's true. And it was really, really dirty inside. There was no way it could work that way.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked you, Denise, to have a look at it and what could we do to repair it, to make it work good.
Yeah. So we gave it a really good shot. We tried a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
We worked at it for a couple of days, right?
Yeah.
So we even tried to remagnetize, to recharge the magnets with this makeshift horseshoe magnet.
Yeah.
So these coils on this were powered by a large battery charger.
Yeah.
And we went north-south, south-north, and trying to get these magnets in position to remagnetize.
Yeah.
I think that we managed to get a little bit of improvement on the magnet side.
Oh yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
sure.
And we got a weak spark, kinda.
Yeah.
But still not good enough. It's not gonna work.
No, not like that.
No.
I guess we need a condenser or
I think condenser, and these old Magnetos had a paper type condenser.
oh yeah, oh good.
And today, some of the guys that play around with this kind of stuff, if you check around on the internet, they use something called a Sprague capacitor to replace those old paper condensers.
Oh, I see.
Okay? They are also known as orange drop capacitors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna have some of those on order. Okay? Might take a couple months to come in. Which we don't have, and even a professional rebuild of this, right, is like 6 months wait,
Oh,
right? So you and Roger weren't going to wait around. So what'd you do?
yeah, we had to order one, and not a new, old one from a guy in Ohio, or I couldn't remember the place.
Right.
In the States.
Yeah. So
But it's working good now.
you took a chance, and that one you got from Ohio through the internet,
Yeah.
which the guy said he used to run on an older one years and years ago. So you had to take your chance that it would run today, and it did.
Yeah, and we are really happy about it.
Good stuff. I want to bring your attention to this pin on the cam gear here. Now watch it as it pushes the lever from the Magneto, and as the lever falls off of that pin. This is an oscillating type Magneto. It's very clever because as that lever falls off the pin, it doesn't matter if you're going 1 RPM or 350 RPMs, the same amount of voltage for the spark is being generated. The action is not related to the speed of the engine, but the fall of the lever off of that pin. And the moment that lever falls off the pin is our ignition timing, shown here as 18 degrees before top dead center, as measured mechanically. Now 18 degrees before top dead center sounds about right for the engine running, but to be able to safely start this engine, the ignition has to be retarded or else you're going to get a kickback. And once the engine starts, you need to be able to re-advance the ignition timing to obtain some performance. I bring your attention to this brass shoe here, and it's on the counterweight. So on startup, the Magneto trigger rides on top of it, and therefore the ignition gets retarded. It falls off of that shoe later than it would have fallen off the pin had the shoe not been in place. Once the engine starts, through centrifugal force, the counterweight removes that shoe, and the trigger falls off of the pin on this cam gear. We're back to the normal ignition timing. It's very clever. You can get automatic ignition retard and back to advance without any human interference. The tendency is to group all of these engines as hit and miss engines. Hit and miss engines keep the exhaust valve open and interrupts the auto cycle, and that's how the speed is governed. This is a throttle governed engine. An engine speed is maintained through the centrifugal force of those weights on the governor. So now we're going to have a little bit of fun. The video is entitled Old Meets New. So in 1924, they didn't have any oscilloscopes, but we do. And we're going to apply it here, and let's see what the findings are. Some of you will recognize the Handtech HT25 capacitive probe. It's a capricious probe to begin with, and I was wondering how it would perform on a Magneto ignition and with this low resistance spark plug wire. This is a steel wire core and only 1 ohm per foot. It turns out that it returns a very weak signal, maybe 50 millivolts. This is a 10,000 to 1 probe. So I decided to go without a safety net. It's a raw piece of copper onto an alligator clip going straight to the center pin of the BNC. Now, followers of the channel know that I don't work with $4,000 oscilloscope, so on the off chance that an errant spark should make it through to the oscilloscope and damage this HS402 that we build here on the channel, I'm out $20 and maybe 2 hours of work to build a new one. I've also added this 4x attenuator to tame this signal down a bit. That attenuator is also built on the Gadgets playlist. And here we have a photocell powered by a 5-volt reference box. The output is 0 volts when it reflects off the tape, 5 volts when it's off the tape. The tape has been placed reference with top dead center. Now here's some interesting findings. If you have a look at this spark line here, it's taking place after top dead center. We were expecting that to take place 18 degrees before top dead center. We can measure that. But first, I also want to point your attention to this secondary spike. Now, I don't think it's causing a spark to take place as such, but this follows through all across the capture at about 90 degrees to 100 degrees after the initial spark. There's this ghost or echo. I'm thinking that it's residual electricity in the Magneto that is traveling down that spark plug wire, but I don't think it is enough to cause a spark. We're not getting the detail of an actual spark, but it does repeat after each main strike. And a cursor measurement shows us that it's actually 11 degrees after top dead center. We would have never thought or known that without taking the scope measurement. Now, adjustments to the timing can be made by jacking this flywheel up, unmeshing these gears, and moving over one tooth one way or the other. Each tooth represents 12 degrees on the flywheel. We have tried to adjust it such that we would get a spark before dead center. But what happens is that at the same time that we move this to adjust the ignition, we're also moving the cam, which is all one piece, for the exhaust valve opening and closing. And we ended up with that 18 degrees measured with the protractor mechanically being the actual best position for this overall. And the effective spark does take place after dead center. So without the benefit of the scope, we would have been misled to believe that the spark does take place before top dead center, when in effect it does not. So Denis, we had a couple of nice days together, gave us a chance to reunite.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, and we learned throughout the process.
I learned lots from you.
So did I working on this, right?
Yeah,
so we had fun, and we hope that you guys had fun as well. Catch you later.
Yeah, have a good day.